Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of this replay between ArgOs, Zenith, and miK here on Scrap Station. Vikings in the air, and bunkers being laid down, and now the Terran siege is beginning. We have an command center being built here and should be lifted off and be moved over there in just a moment. Queen now may be able to take down one or two of those Vikings before they land. Zerglings now coming in trying to surround, and those Vikings just simply getting torn apart there. Really, really nicely done. Mutalisk now coming in, but Mutalisk just getting torn apart by these missile turrets. Zerglings running on in, splash damage coming on in as well. Overlord with one Zergling just going to get taken down. Not quite sure why that Overlord wants to be in that fight. There it goes. And wow, just continuing heavy losses. Army of ArgOs Zenith down to 575 compared to miK's 2200. But really the harvester count is what's keeping ArgOs Zenith in this game at 2200 minerals a minute. Really needs to take down these destructible rocks, as these high yield minerals will be taken down or depleted momentarily. Yeah, forgetting the English language. Now we have another command center being laid down here, another refinery being placed down. So slowly but surely miK is going to be playing off of two bases, transferring all of these SCVs. His main base already been mined out. Production over here, level 2 weapons upgrade nearly completed, but Zergling's now going to be able to run on in, perhaps take down the rest of these SCVs. And now in comes this Viking siege tank, or Viking Thor Marauder army, and now this is looking fairly bad. ArgOs Zenith is going to lose this high yield mineral location, but we have another expansion being laid down over here as Ultralisk now moving on in. Ultralisk and Zerglings going to try to come on in from the back, and all of these Ultralisk going to simply be able to move on in and clean up this whole entire location here, and simply ignoring the whole entire center portion. But where are they going? For some reason they should be trying to move off into here. This expansion has been cleared down over here, and will those Archalists be able to take down this expansion? No, come on, move over here, deal some damage, and really try to deal some damage really to the economy of miK. Siege tanks gonna be moving on it. Siege tanks with sight gonna start blasting away out these Ultralists in that hold position, and really out of position, holding position there. Marauders gonna be moving on in, and now here comes that splash. Siege tanks gonna start destroying some of their own Marauders there as these Ultralists move on in, slicing away at those stores, and down they go. So a bloody pulping mess over here. But now in come another 7 Ultralists. We are getting the adrenal glands and more Ultralists being trained on up. Why are these Ultralists moving and not dealing damage here? Just really just messy play coming in from ArgOs Zenith. ArgOs Zenith should perhaps trying to use some more creep tumors and take down the rest of this army here, but really ArgOs Zenith with that stronger economy and continuing to move on in and try to take down this command center, this or what will be a planetary fortress. Now moving in to try to headbutt this command center and planet fortress, and also taking some extra damage as well. But really out of position, out of bad play here. The whole entire splash damage from these Ultralists. Ultralists now slowly treading back and forth. Gonna go ahead and head back over here. More Zerglings, more Ultralists being produced. Wow, 5 more Ultralists. So he's going mass Ultralists. Taking a look at the unit tab, we now currently is sitting on 6 Ultralists, but these Ultralists are not dealing the amount of damage as they should, because he's letting miK hold the center location. There are a couple Marauders, and this does look like a very well fortified location, but it will be simply torn apart by Zerglings. But we're gonna have a drop of Ultralists. I'm not sure how those Overlords are able to hold an Ultralist in their ventral sacs, but all kudos to them being able to expand themselves like that. Look at that Ultralisk so big, and now those Overlords able to hide themselves in there. ArgOs Zenith now trying to get this high yield mineral location over here. Should perhaps try to transfer some drones as well. Harvester count is finally evening out in terms of the economy, so things are looking fairly bad. miK now able to control this center ground, and perhaps should try to take down this location as well. A scanner sweep revealing whatever a Zerg or a Terran player hates to see, another expansion by a Zerg. And now a Queen now moving over. Queen gonna go ahead and spawn larva, and now those Vikings gonna go ahead and start shooting at these Overlords, and this is not good news at all. May lose one of those Overlords with that Ultralisk. So 2 Vikings taking down an Ultralisk, not something you see every day. Zergling's gonna go ahead and start dropping another Ultralisk getting taken down, but Zergling's now being manually dropped, and Ultralisk coming on in. Marauders ready to intercept, and now Zergling's moving on in as well. Overlord's just doing that doom drop, and now gonna go ahead and pull back out. But really, this drop not going to deal the amount of damage that ArgOs Zenith really needed it to deal. This Ultralisk was sitting with 3 armor. Really needs to get that additional armor upgrade, getting the ground level upgrade as well. So should be able to get stronger and stronger upgrades. And Ultralisk just running on in, trying to take down some of these SCVs. Vikings coming into that ground mode, and that is bad news for that Viking, or for that Ultralisk. Vikings able to go ahead and pick off those units there. So once again, nicely done. Center of the map still being controlled by miK, and this is really the issue here. We are at tier 3, so a greater spire could be produced fairly easily. I wouldn't suggest Broodlords just because of the sheer number of Vikings that miK is able to produce off of this one starport with that reactor, but something needs to be done to break this whole entire Terran front door containment that miK has. There is ways to move around it, but more Ultralisk coming in to join in on this fight, and no weapons upgrade. That is very surprising to see no weapons upgrade when the strategy is mass Ultralisk and Zerglings, but now we are getting Infestors with Nero Parasite, so all of those stores and all of those siege tanks are gonna fall prey very quickly to those units. We have one queen walking back and forth, Overlords, and just simply getting torn apart there. And now, really, ArgOs Zenith needs to get some Hydralisk in order to try to stop some of that Viking play, and then perhaps tech into Broodlords as the Vikings begin to slow down. Now in comes, we do have Neuro Parasite still being researched. Fungal Growth perhaps can slow down some of those units as well, but yeah, those Vikings just able to just move around so easily, just get free reign on this whole entire ground army. Infestor now moving out very slow, Queen moving out very slowly as well, and now Zerg on that creep. Where is that Ultralisk Cavern? Ultralisk Cavern does have the extra armor upgrades, and now Ultralisk coming in over here. So Ultralisk able to somehow do a drop and do a run by here. Now trying to take down some of these SCVs, but those rest of those Marauders able to come on in, and these Ultralisk unable to really just butting their heads up against this Planetary Fortress. Planetary Fortress with 3 armor, and all of these SCVs able to continue to repair that. Back over here, missile turret. So really just strong play coming in from miK. miK doing a great job just trying to contain his opponent, and really ArgOs Zenith is constantly just throwing units at this whole entire front door and not able to really deal the necessary damage. He's tried drops, he's tried air, he's tried ground, and none of it is really working for him all that well. Back over here, we do have the infestation pit nearly, or has finished Neuro Parasite, and if you look, we have 5 infestors. So those infestors should be able to start taking down some of these siege tanks, and then once these siege tanks are destroyed, those Thor should be able to just run over the rest of the army. Still no concussive shells on those Marauders. Marauders concussive shells do not work on massive units anyways, so these Ultralisks are naturally immune. So they are immune to snare, stun, and mind control effects. Ultralisk gonna go ahead and just move out. We do have some of those Mutalisks in the air and Ultralisk on the ground. Mutalisk gonna try to run on in, but yeah, not gonna really work out all too well. We have one Queen coming in, and that Queen should be able to, I guess, take down some of these Vikings. So one fungal growth, another fungal growth should have been cast on all of those Vikings, and then 4 of those Vikings would have been taken down very easily. Where are the rest of those infestors? So infestors sitting and hiding off over here, and sitting on now a fair amount of energy, 183 energy, should be able to come in. I do not see any ghost coming in, and now 52 Zerglings currently in production for miK. So miK now also grabbing this high yield mineral expansion over here, and now I think this is the first time I've seen every single mineral patch in Scrap Station, or sorry, in Steps of War being mined or being depleted. And now really miK has map control on this whole entire game, able to see so much, and now these Vikings are going to be able to move on in. One siege tank sitting on over here, Vikings unable to see off into that high ground, and now in comes this whole entire army. Wow, as soon as those Vikings came into sight, not looking very good over here. Extractor now going to get blasted away by the siege tank. Siege tanks are upgraded 3-0, Ultralisk upgraded 4-2 now. So while those Ultralisks with sitting on 4 armor and taking really reduced damage, and now mass orbital command or mass planetary fortress is in the center of the map. Mass Ultralisks now moving on through, fungal growth hitting, and a lot of these units here, and those Ultralisks just simply tearing away. This is something that should have been done much earlier. Vikings now hunting off Overlords over here as these Ultralisks continue to push on through army-wise. miK can just be able to move on in and take the rest of this game if he tries to unsiege the rest of these siege tanks, but he does not know the strength that Argos that he's in. Vikings just trying to move on out, perhaps going to go ahead and land and take down some of these units over here. One Queen coming on in. Queen does have level 2 armor upgrades, and oh, it's changed. The Queen is now part of air upgrades, so the Queen is now part of the ranged upgrades from the Zerg, no longer part of the ground upgrades, or sorry, the claw upgrades. It is part of the projectile upgrades. So I think that was another change from the patch. I may be remembering incorrectly. I always thought the Queens were got the weapons upgrade similar to a Zergling. So once again, very, very crazy game so far, going back and forth. Vikings now harassing this particular expansion as more Ultralists perhaps going to try to pressure on this front door. A lot of Marauders coming, or Marauders sitting off over here. Siege tanks able to get in a couple quick blasts as these Ultralists going to go ahead and try to move over here and take these Vikings. Ultralists are not that fast, only moving fairly slowly, but those Vikings, unless they jump into the air quick enough, able to miss that one claw attack so closely there. So once again, nicely done. Queen unable to see these Vikings sitting off over here to the side. Zerglings, now a horrible choice to try to pressure here, as we have planetary fortresses sitting in the center of the map. So these planetary fortresses with that 3 armor, able to deal a lot of damage and really stop any of these Zerglings. So 2 planetary fortresses, a lot of Marauders. You can see the army sizes, both sides, production, and more Zerglings being produced. Level 2 weapons upgrade on these Marauders now. So these Marauders are going to be able to deal 24 damage per shot towards those Ultralists before armor calculations, and then I guess it's back down to 20. Yeah, back down to 9 or down to 19. So those bunkers able to get on in. Oh, and this is, I guess it's a recent change where there's a little bit of gap in the debris over here and here, and another command center being placed down by miK. miK just doing a great job just containing Argos Zenith, and this is a very, very just like head pounding situation for a Zerg player when the Terran player is properly set up in his defense. We do have a very large Doom drop moving on out. And does miK see this? He does see that there are some, how does a sensor tower sense units in the air? Not quite sure, but now in comes this whole entire play here. Should start dropping that Overlord and dropping these Overlords, making sure that not losing any of these units over here. And now gonna go ahead and move on, perhaps try to take down this planetary fortress once again. No, just gonna go ahead and take down this orbital command. This orbital command just getting denied, just gonna be lifted off. And this army once again moving off. The Terran mech and the Marauders once again moving out to try to deal with this very, very large Doom drop. These units really need to be dropped down. Hellions do not have the Infernal Pre-Igniter, but with that level 3 weapons upgrade doesn't really matter as all of these units, as all of these Ultralists come into position. And while both sides taking heavy losses here, terrible damage being dealt. Ultralists now moving on in to try to take down these siege tanks. Siege tanks now within that 0 distance, taking heavy damage as well. And now miK losing a lot of those units. We have fully upgraded Ultralists trying to take down this planetary fortress. This planetary fortress down to 600 hit points. SCVs coming off the line to try to repair it and doing a great job. In the meantime, we have an Overlord just spawning creep over here for no real reason. And wow, this planetary fortress with massive amounts of SCVs able to stay within the game still. Back over here, Overlords and 1 Ultralist, I believe. Yeah, 1 Ultralist and denying this particular expansion over here. And now Ultralist denying this expansion over here. So wow, Argos Zenith really getting back into this game. And now both sides really limited on resources. Stay tuned for part 3 of this replay between miK and Argos Zenith here on Steps of War.